You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
This is TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network, a weekly audio safari that features the newest in paranormal discoveries while highlighting the latest and not to be missed TruthFunder.com projects. For truth seekers and true believers, this week's TruthFunders starts now.
Greetings, bonjour, hola, welcome, and hello to the live radio show that is known as TruthFunders Radio here on the Inception Radio Network. This is a live radio show. We are on every Wednesday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you're somewhere in the middle, figure it out. I'm sure you have to do that on a regular basis anyway. We're live on the Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb. I am your host. Thank you so much for tuning in for the live program this week. If you are listening to the show on podcast that you just so happen to download via the Inception Radio Network app or via the website or the Roku or however you're accessing IRN, do please try and tune in live each Wednesday because we like to have an interaction, a live, dialogue, a back and forth, if you will, between you and I, and usually Mark Schwartz. He's my co-host, and he is the CEO and founder of TruthFunders.com, but he happens to be not with us this week. It's just going to be myself and our guest, who I will be introducing in just a few minutes here. But he is off in Hawaii, driving around right now. The Big I don't know if Hawaii is the Big Island. No, the Big Island is the Big Island. You know what? I honestly know nothing about Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. I've done a lot of traveling. Like, I've been to a lot of places. I mean, I lived in Paris for almost a year. But I've never been to Hawaii, and that's kind of crazy considering that I live in California on the, very southern part of the coast, and my whole family's been, but I've never been, so I'm kind of jealous of him cruising around. He actually sent me a video yesterday as we were discussing the program for today, and he was at the Jurassic Park Ranch, where I guess this is where they filmed all the Jurassic Park movies, and in this video, I should really get him to post it on the Truth Funders page because he's running around like a damn dinosaur to the Jurassic Park music, and it's about as Mark Schwartz gets. I mean, it doesn't really like epitomize itself much more than that. If you want to get to know the real true Mark Schwartz, that video should be at your disposal, and I'm going to urge him to put that up online. 888-919-2355 is the telephone number here at Inception Radio, 888-919-2355. Since Mark's not here, I guess we can, talk some shit on him if we want to. 888-919-2355. If you want to call in, please do so, and we can chit-chat about Truth Funders. We can chit-chat about the paranormal, the metaphysical, the universal, everything that is essentially good. That's what we are here at Truth Funders. It's all about the light, and I do very much so appreciate you tuning in. Now, I don't have a whole lot to run down with you for this week's program. I kind of want to jump right into the guest. I honestly did not know prior to yesterday who the guest was going to be this week. Since Mark is on his honeymoon, he was a little behind the ball in terms of getting me all the info over. But once I figured out, or learned rather, who the guest was going to be for the program, I became very excited. I cannot wait to speak with this woman. Her name is Michelle Marie Angel, and she is an author. She's got a book. It's a New World After All, poetry in prose to inspire a new world vision. And this is going to be a great conversation about consciousness and the light. I mean, this is just everything that personally I am all about. And there's a lot of things going on with her past and her kind of path that's led her to this point that I can see parallels in with my life. Maybe not specifically myself, but my wife. It's kind of crazy, the similarities here. So let's go ahead and bring Miss Michelle Marie Angel on now. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on Truth Funders. You have quite quite the list of things here. A little behind the scenes on how radio works is we will get a rundown of things that the guest likes to talk about. And just in going over your list, every single bullet point that you listed here and things that you would like to talk about, I want to talk about every single one of these. So we're probably just going to run down the list. But before we do that, let's talk about your TruthFunders project that's going to be going live this weekend on TruthFunders.com. And it is the Alchemy of Light project, correct?
That's correct.
And the whole point of this project is to transform education and raise consciousness. Now, when I saw those two words, my heart skipped a beat, honestly, because that has been a theme in my own household for the better part of the last 3 years. And I want to get into why in a moment, but let's talk a little bit about you first, and then we'll jump into these similarities that I kind of was in shock over. Where did you come from, and how did you come to be with us here on TruthFunders today?
Where did I come from is a very big question. I don't want to go through all that or the whole show would be taken up. But originally I grew up in Michigan, and I'm currently living in Ashland, Oregon. And
you were an author, and you... previous to that, were a teacher, or school teacher.
Yes, I taught school in Florida and Oregon. I taught elementary school, middle school, high school, and then community college.
So did you do them in that order as well?
Yes, I did. I went through school twice. Once as a student, once as a teacher.
How funny. And had you always been of the idea that you were going to eventually retire from education and teaching when the time was right and transition into being an author? Or is this kind of something that just happened to you as life happened along the way?
No, I'm a planner. I actually sat down in my 20s and wrote down the decades and what I was going to do in each decade of my life, and I truly intended to become a writer.
Wow, so you actually followed through with what your plan was. That's remarkable. So many people don't do that.
Well, it's not like I haven't had many obstacles along the way, but I am where I am.
And when did you retire from being a public school? Was it public school?
Yes, public school.
When did you retire?
Well, I quit more than retired, but I quit teaching based on a principle, actually, of what was happening in public schools, and that was in 2012. I'm still...
Are you serious?
I'm still a certified teacher in the state of Oregon.
Wow. And, okay, so I just kind of want to run this down with you here, because this is so personally just parallel to what's going on in my own life. My wife is a tenured public school teacher that quit just last year on a principle of the matter alone to become a artist, yoga teacher, and author herself.
Congratulations to her.
And in all of the same veins as what you write about and what your focus is on, which is higher consciousness. And would you say that your work is metaphysically based?
Absolutely. Yes.
That's what, her whole thing is too. So I just can't believe that I get to speak with you, because I have I'm going through this with her right now, and she's at the point where it's the first year still. I mean, this would have been her last year teaching, ending, I guess, with this summer. So she's only been out for a year, but it's been a up and down process in terms of, finding her ground and finding her footing in terms of coming out of that and really, finding what it means to work for herself. And is that something that you struggled with at all when you became an author out of becoming out of being a teacher?
No, because I was overlapping for quite some time.
Oh, okay. So you actually did plan it out.
15 years. Yes.
Okay, I understand. So you were able to kind of slowly crossfade the two, if you will.
Well, yes, but what I learned along the way was so important. One thing is that the education seems circumscribed. In other words, the choices, what I saw, were limited for students going through the public school system. And so I wanted to create something that was more inside out, like a self-discovery genius program.
Absolutely.
Rather than a outside in, we can regurgitate these facts, kind of.
Well, if we can touch on this for a moment, this isn't the most paranormal or metaphysical topics, but it's an interesting one, because I feel that the public school system, especially here in the United States, has become a complete it's had turned a 180. It's a completely different beast than it was 20 years ago. I mean, there's so much bureaucracy, and there's so much, I feel like, emphasis on the money and the distribution of funds and the teachers' pay, and all of this focus that is taking away from the children's actual learning and the intent of the entire school system being about the educational growth and development of children. I just don't see that anymore at all in the public school system.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that's really important for people to realize that it has changed so dramatically, even in the last 5 years.
In the last three, in the last two, in the last one. I mean, it gets worse
absolutely
every year.
Yes. I was a substitute after I quit teaching full-time, and when I went back, there were many changes that were very disappointing.
It really has become all about just memorize these test answers and get through what has been regulated as a common knowledge base that all children must have. And you're right, it's just regurgitating answers. There's no, I feel like thematic education has gone completely out the window. And also, this is something that coincides with parents and the shift in how parents and teachers decide to maintain the relationship with one another now. And that I feel like parents have become much more on the side of the child than they have on the side of the teacher. And when the child, does something wrong and then goes home and complains to the parent will come in and yell at the teacher for doing something wrong. I don't understand where adults became discredited after sitting in classrooms for children for years and years and years. A, B, and also parents have decided that teachers are essentially babysitters, and they should be raising their children, really, at this point as well. Am I wrong?
You're right. I called a parent one time to tell her that her son had choked another child and had an F on his test, and she turned around and said, well, he was fine yesterday. What did you do to him?
That's so unbelievable. That's nauseating to me, really, because it really is supposed to be a partnership between the school system and the parents to make sure that the child gets the type of boundaries and the type of discipline and the type of expectations set that kids crave. They need that kind of strict guidelines to live by in order to grow and to respect. It's just a sense of entitlement thing. And my words are getting jumbled because there's so much that I have to say about this, and my brain is moving a mile a minute, but I think we're on the same page entirely.
Definitely. I think that all students have genius within them, and when they give them labels and drugs, they're just limiting their possibilities.
They give them a glass ceiling, and they cloud up their brains, and I really feel like work towards just making another cog in the system with each child that is in the public school system today. And we could even discuss the emphasis on become a young child, go to school, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, and then you become what is legally considered an adult at 18. You're nowhere near an actual adult, or developmentally speaking. And then there is this immediate push to go to college, to get a degree, to get a job, and to then, just go through this entire cycle that is really kind of broken because there's no way to make it succeed in I feel like, for future generations. And there's no emphasis whatsoever put on the child to think for themselves, to go out and find who they are, what they like, what they love, and how to take the time to really get in touch with themselves. And do you agree that is something that is a major flaw in the society that we're living in today?
Well, that's absolutely correct, and that's what I'm trying to address with my Follow Your Heart inspiration education. It really is based on self-discovery.
So let's talk about your Follow Your Heart inspiration education programs and what they are all about, what the inspiration came from for you to do them, and where you would like to see them go. Okay.
I actually have 6 programs under development, and the first one, called What Makes You Happy, is based on some homeschool activities that I gave my son when I took him out of high school and homeschooled him the last few years of his life to follow his heart. And he did that successfully, and now he makes videos, does video editing, and he loves what he does, and he knows everything he needs to know to do his job. And he's happy.
Unbelievable. What a concept. I, personally followed kind of the same path. I did graduate from public high school, but I went to college at UC for one semester, and I decided that was just not for me, and I was going to follow my heart and follow my passion and do what I love, and which consequently enough has been broadcasting and radio and audio and digital content and things like that. And it's been a ridiculous amount of success for me since essentially day one, since I decided that was what I was going to follow and I was going to do what I loved. And, the money comes second, because if you're doing what you love, then you're never working. And I think that it's so sad that so many children miss out on the opportunity to really decide what it is that their heart tells them to do, because I don't think anybody ever tells them to listen to their heart.
Well, I did, but there were...
Well, I'm sure you did, but
they got rid of me.
but on an overall scale, and I'm talking about the school system, parents, just the current state of where we are as a society in the United States.
Absolutely, we need that to be a general target for children to come from the core of their being instead of being taught core curriculum, so that they can each be individual and unique and express their creative abilities. And that's what makes them happy, expressing their creative abilities.
And I think also allowing them to be children. I do feel like there's such a loss of innocence, especially in this post-internet world, where kids are expected to act like such young adults at ages that are unfathomable. I mean, just the willingness to let a child go and run about and use his imagination is even something that I see less and less of.
There's a loss of freedom. Let's call it that. It's a loss of freedom.
Okay. I would agree with that. And where do you think that, loss of freedom comes from? I mean, how do we even fall into this, do you think?
Well, the whole schedule is regimented. The curriculum is regimented, and it's too controlled. With that much control, who can be free to express their creative genius? They need to have the open space to do that. They need the time, they need the resources, and they need the guidance in order to do that.
And does that control something that is government-based? Does that control something that is fueled by money and power? I mean, where did that even come from? Because I do feel like even maybe when you were a child, did you go to public school as a child?
Yes,
or no?
I went to public school, community college, and then I got a master's degree.
Hey, let's not even talk about the college system. I mean, it's such a for-profit institution.
Well, I call it a debt trap now. And
it is. It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm. I don't recommend it. I recommend students to, get the information that they need to follow their heart.
Yep. I mean, I did not go to college, and I don't have a dime of debt to my name. And it is one of the most, talk about freedom, liberating feelings that I could possibly feel. I mean, it's, I have so many friends that have masters and a couple that have doctorates, and they are in it for life with the debt, and they're never going to climb out of it, especially, a particular friend who has a doctorate in jazz composition. I mean, there's nothing he's going to be able to do to make that money back. And it's sad. And do you feel like it really just comes down to the almighty dollar, and that being what fuels this kind of like turn that we've seen in the last 40 years?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That and some agendas that we're aware of.
What types of agendas?
Well, the military-industrial complex has its tentacles in the public school system, in that they come and they use certain branding and certain mind directional initiatives, I would say. And so they harvest people for the military right within the schools with certain strategies that work on these young minds.
Well, let's get into this, because this is something that's completely news to me. I would love to talk more about this. I mean, I didn't even know that the military-industrial complex was that interwoven with children in the school system and being picked off from such early ages. Specifically, are we talking about like the ROTC programs?
Well, I believe it was just the Army. I'm not sure, because they had their military fatigues on, but they started coming into the high school where I used to teach one full day a week. Then it was 2 full days a week. Then they would, pass out the pencils and the book bags and all this stuff, and they'd offer them all this stuff, and they would have like a Hummer in the parking lot with, loud music on that was inviting to the kids.
I remember that. I mean, I only graduated high school in 2003, so I remember that quite well.
Yeah, if they want to, recruit people, I don't think they should be able to go into mandatory public institutions and cull people from where they have to be. They almost like don't have any choice but to have their minds affected by this. And so it's taking away free choice.
Well, especially because they're at such an impressionable age still when they're at that point. I mean, there's nothing really that allows them to make up their own minds based on any knowledge of experience, whether or not that's something that would be right for them. And it's just presented as being cool and hip and the thing to do. And yeah, obviously they're going to hook a bunch of them. So the industrial...
There's mandatory career curriculum in most schools. The mandatory career curriculum pretty much points students in the direction of either college or military.
It's one or the other, huh?
Yeah, and these are government mandated career programs.
And where did these government mandated career programs, are these just, it's just over the years? I mean, Common Core really is the major issue now, is it not?
Yeah, but what I'm referring to is I actually had to help develop some career courses that are in the state of Oregon. They're mandatory, and it goes along with all of their senior project and everything that they have to explore for careers. But it really does drive them into, which college are you going to, instead of do you wish to go to college or not? Or, they
why do you think that is? Why do you think they even they don't even present them with that question of do you want to go to college or not? And it's which college do you want to go to? Why is that?
Well, back to the almighty dollar, it's a debt trap.
It's just a perpetual machine of money being sought after. Money really is the root of all evil. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the worst.
If that's your motivation, it sure is.
Yeah. So you had always been somebody that was more consciously aware and spiritually based, even when you were a teacher, going back, throughout all those years in elementary and middle school and high school as well. This wasn't something that developed with you over time. This is something that's been with you since a young age.
Yeah, my own personal development from within has always been a high priority in my life. Actually, the top priority, because I need to develop myself and be the best I can be. Because any teacher or guide or mentor, the best way to teach is by example.
Yeah, and also letting the children know that no one ever stops learning or growing. The moment you stop learning or growing, you might as well be dead, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of people out there, I feel like, that decide that they're done learning and growing at certain points, and I think it's really sad. But I think that really it is such a important part of being a human being to understand that we are here to learn and grow continuously, and to never stop learning and growing and developing and going down our paths toward whichever it is our own unique individual paths are for. So were you raised in a household that was more spiritually aware, or has this just been always something that you've had with you since you were a young child?
I had it with me since I was a young child. I wasn't exactly raised that way. My parents had 7 kids, and we were just raised traditionally with doing our chores, going to school, promoted to get good grades. We had, our curfews and rules, and, we learned our manners and did our chores and went through school the traditional way.
So at what age did you decide you wanted to become a teacher?
I was around 32. And I had gotten an associate's degree in accounting, and my husband and I had just adopted a son, and that just changed me and what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be more child-oriented, and so I decided to be a teacher.
Wow. And did you go back and get your credential at that point?
No, I really just switched. I had just received, the same year that I adopted my child, the same year I received my AA degree in accounting, and so when I went to the University of Central Florida, I just switched my major to elementary education, so it was perfect.
Okay, so you were able to just slide right through.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, great. Well, I think we need to actually take a short break here, but when we get back, I want to talk about the transformation seminars and events that you've put together over the years, and specifically more about your nonprofits and the book, and really kind of get much deeper into our own inner lights and vibrations and the universe and all that, because that is my favorite topic. I love our friends. That's what I call them, our friends. Everybody has their own name for them, but I call them our friends. You're listening to TruthFunders Radio, live on the Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb. I am talking with Michelle Marie Angel. Michelle, do you have a website that you would like to get out? We can just throw out a couple times here during the course of the program.
Yes, www.smile4love.com.
That's www.smile4love.com. You can learn more about Michelle and also her Truth Funder project, Alchemy of Light.
visionarysolutions.org.
visionarysolutions.org. I'll write those down during the break so I don't forget them. And we will come back and we will talk a little bit more about those things that I just mentioned, as well as this. We'll get more into this list: intentional living, visioning. Are we talking about like visualizing? And when you mention visioning, is that what you mean? And like,
oh yes.
Oh man, visualization is a big thing.
Applied the science of consciousness.
Visualization is a big thing in my house, so I can't wait to get into that with you as well. My name is Art Webb. You're listening to TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network, and we will be this after back.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
You're listening to the live TruthFunders Radio show on the Inception Radio Network. My name is Art Webb. I am your host. No Mark Schwartz this week. He is out having his honeymoon in Hawaii. Lucky son of a gun. I actually didn't get to have much of a honeymoon because we had to come back and get straight to work, and that was almost a year ago, and we planned on taking a honeymoon, but that still has yet to happen. But that's besides the point. Neither here or there. What do you care about that? 888-919-2355 is the telephone number, and we have Michelle Marie Angel on the show with us this week, and we're talking about, well, we started talking the program about her history as a teacher, a public school teacher, and we started to get a little bit into her more spiritual aspects and, beliefs and the more metaphysical side of her work and why she retired or quit being a teacher and decided to move more into working for herself and really, developing a product and a system that she thought was, really going to be productive for the world and contributing back in such a way that is not just kind of feeding the meter and letting the system continue as it is. Breaking the cycle, Michelle, is actually one of my favorite phrases on the face of the planet, because I think there are so many cycles that need to be broken that anytime a cycle can be dismantled for the better, it should be at least sought after and pursued. You know what I mean?
I feel like very many advanced souls came to the planet at this time to break cycles, to have experiences and, sort of reverse engineer in a way and eliminate those patterns, unlearn, and then reprogram our consciousness and our subconscious minds so that we can, be the genius souls that we're meant to be in expression.
My entire body has goosebumps right now after hearing you say that, because it's been something that I've been screaming for years, very much so along the same lines. I mean, my whole being is tingling right now, and that usually happens to me specifically when somebody says something that is so dead on and right that it's just it's the way the air works around us. Because at the end of the day, we are all vibrations, and we're all essentially sound and just things moving very quickly. And I think that words, when spoken in such a key that are truth in nature, that sort of thing happens, So, yeah,
I love that. I get that feedback quite a bit, and I like to hear it, when people do get chill bumps, because, that means I've nailed the truth in some way.
Yeah, and you've articulated it in such a way that really is palpable too. I mean, that is part of, I think, what these advanced souls are here to do, is properly articulate it so people can understand it and really take an interest in it as well. And I do believe that something, very, very large happened on a spiritual and consciousness level in the winter of 2012 that I think has really set us on a path. It might be long and it might be hairy, but we're really working towards getting the human race into a place it needs to be. And I do believe that we're on the right path. I think it's scary out there right now, but I think that there are enough souls here incarnated on the planet at this time by choice. And I have been I've sworn up and down since I was 5 years old that I was here by choice, not by any kind of necessity, that we're doing the work that we need to do. And this includes, as it would be, your own personal transformation seminars and events that you've been doing for how long? You've been doing these for?
I've been doing them for 15 years. I came to Ashland originally to work with Neil Donald Walsh, the author of Conversations with God, and I worked for his company Greatest Visions, and I produced Conscious Commerce seminars at that time.
And is that the whole reason you moved to Oregon to begin with, was to work directly with him? Because he's a pretty famous guy. I mean, that book is a big book.
Yeah, he's got several books, and 3 Conversations with God books, Conversations with God, I can't remember the friendship book, but he's got quite a few books, and it really helps a lot of people. And yes, that's what brought me to Ashland, me and my son.
So are you still actively working with him, or have you since moved on into your own?
No, I worked with him for just a little under a year, and then I just moved on to my own curriculum development and personal transformation.
And this was while you were still teaching as well. You taught in Ashland, yes or no?
No. When I first moved to Ashland, I didn't teach for 5 years. When I first moved to Oregon from Florida, I did not teach for 5 years. I was developing personal transformation seminars, and I was providing workshops, and I was developing curriculum and presentations along those lines. And then I went back into teaching, and I was kind of leading a double life, writing books and developing my own consciousness while teaching in public school.
Wow, that is so crazy how similar you and my wife are. It's the exact same thing. So let's talk about these transformation seminars. How many different ones do you have, and who do they appeal to? And what's the frequency in which you put them on? I mean, let's get into these here.
Okay. Well, I want to say they're multi-gen, which means multi-generation. And what I feel like is that the whole consciousness of humanity is changing, and souls have a certain level of development. It's not based on the age of the body.
No, of course not.
We have many different levels of evolution of souls. And
Absolutely.
We have a lot of very bright souls, coming in and that have been suppressed. So this multi-gen transformational program, truly, I have a Train the Trainer, Rock My World program, because I think the youth are our teachers to help us unlearn all those things that we were kind of programmed out of. So we're reprogramming to have more creative freedom and to acknowledge our soul connection and the genius that comes from that.
Would you say that's part of the major disconnect that exists right now between what has been labeled the millennial generation and, say, the baby boomer generation, their kind of parents' generation? Because I do believe that there is more of a complete misunderstanding between these two generations than I think ever has existed in any other point in time in humanity, as far as Western history, civilization goes back. Because, and I think, the internet has a lot to do with it, and just technology and the rapid pace that it's developed and kids growing up with it. But I also think that you're right. What you're saying is much more the reason that this just disconnect is taking place. And there's this almost fear of the younger generation by the older generation, because they so do not understand how that younger generation is thinking and operating, and why they aren't operating with the same values and sort of goals that they were growing up as children. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I just want to say that everybody in my class, and I want to tell everybody listening now, that you are a genius. I don't care if you're a parent or a student or a grandparent, and it's never too late to discover that genius if you haven't already. This is actually the time for all of humanity to reconnect with your soul and the powers that you have and your unique qualities and gifts and talents, and to bring those out. And anybody that tries to suppress that in the younger generation is not doing them any favors. They need creative freedom. They need freedom.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that imagination and actively using one's imagination and daydreaming, and even if we want to roll into visualization here, is really, it cannot be emphasized enough how important that sort of way of living is, and using that time to just sit there and visualize and think about what it is you want to be, who it is you want to be, the things you want to learn, the things you want to do, how you want to give back, how you want to contribute to society, how you want to contribute to yourself. I mean, seeing it in your own mind is what makes it a reality.
Yes. Using your imagination and having freedom of mind and freedom to vision, it takes a state of beingness. And so you get still, and a lot of inner processes take place, and there's too much emphasis on doingness, always being active, always being busy, always pointing attention outward. We need to reverse that trend and create some balance and give people freedom to just be. That way they can explore the inner world, and that world is just fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, especially those personality types that cannot stand to be alone. I mean, they always need to be around somebody. They always need to be being social. They're afraid of that because they've never been in touch with their own insides and what it means to go in deep inside and within yourself and really take that time to explore that area. And I do think the key word that you hit on there is balance. I mean, my whole thing has always been that the one word that surmises all happiness is balance. I mean, that is the ultimate goal is a balance of all. And I feel like we live in such an unbalanced society, particularly in that regard.
Yeah, that's actually what my first transformation class was based on, balance. All of the areas of being, and then there's an inner and outer component to each of those areas of being, which are mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional.
Yeah, that's a really big one, especially for me. I speak on it so often in my daily personal life and my radio life. It's just everything is about balance and contributing towards others and all that. So in moving on, do you do a seminar or event based on visualization alone? I mean, is it just the one that you do, or how many different ones have you done over the years now, or is there too many to count?
Well, if I could think of about a dozen that I've created, I can probably get to at least 6 right off the top of my head.
And do you put these on with do you put them on a regular basis, or is it, how does it work? I mean, are there ones you're planning now that people could go to if they wanted to?
Yeah. Actually, there's one on September 3rd at the Jackson Wellsprings, and it's about community visioning, and I'm going to inspire people to join together in consciousness on a regular basis to use what we know scientifically to create a better reality. It also empowers people and gives them hope when they get the evidence, the factual evidence of some of these nefarious agendas going on in our world.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that seminar, because I think that's a really big thing right now that I think you're hitting the tail on the donkey, so to speak, in terms of what needs to be really...
Not only that, that's so exciting because that's what inspired this Alchemy of Light project. I was going to a southern...
And that's, just so everyone knows, that's the TruthFunders project that you'll be able to check out and donate on this weekend when it goes live, and we will update you on that when that happens. But this weekend, the Alchemy of Light project will be up. And yeah, let's just talk about that while we're at it.
Okay, what inspired me to get started again in these community group events is that I went to an awareness raising project or group about geoengineering, and it's called the Southern Oregon Blue Skies Project, and you can look that up online because they're doing great things to raise awareness around geoengineering. And I went to a few of their meetings, and some of the people felt spiritually lowered or kind of depressed or in dismay because it seemed like, although the information was truthful, it was hard to take. It's negative in a way. It's like, and so the group discussion centered around raising people's hope and empowering people and bringing in more positive things. And so I raised my hand and I said, well, I have some things I developed that I would like to share. And so I did a community visioning with the Blue Skies Project, and people were asking for more. And I decided to go full force again into providing these community events and combining it with getting my books published. There's 48 stories for awakened awareness, which are based on truth and integrity, and they feed people's souls, and they just feel good.
Where did these stories come from? They're true stories, or are they?
I wrote them.
You wrote them. So are they fiction based, or are they based in reality?
They're based on character development. For example,
okay, got it. Okay.
Clothing of the Soul is about non-judgment and about how everybody's a soul, and it doesn't matter what they look like on the outside.
So they're more abstract.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And there's 48 of these stories that you said that are in this book that is part of the Alchemy of Light project?
There are 48 separate books. They come in groups of 12.
Oh, wow.
48 separate books. They're a children's book format, and I also use them in PowerPoint presentation format for community events.
That's phenomenal. And wow, and that's a lot of books. I mean, you must sit there and write constantly.
What happens is, this is what I'm trying to convey to people. I have an inner meditation, contemplation time every morning, and once I get to that place, I get inspired, and I mean, these words and books come through, and I've just been very prolific just because of making that connection, and so it's the connection that everybody can make.
Well, it's the universe speaking through you as well. It's not necessarily you saying it. It is just you being open to letting the universe say what it needs to say, and it's the universe working through all of us. When anything
You've got that right.
Are done. Mm-hmm. It's them speaking. Correct. It's not us. It's them, and we're just the conduits. We are the speakers.
Right.
To their,
and we elicit this information through our contemplation and what we're interested in and what we're trying to discover. And it's like we have this library card to this vast, infinite library, the infinite intelligence of the universe, and anything's available, and everybody can make the connection to it.
Do you just a personal curiosity here, do you see a lot of synchronicity in your life and a lot of just kind of acknowledgments from the universe on your daily life as you go about living?
Absolutely, yes. That's actually part of this intentional living path. There's a lot of synchronicities, a lot of intuition, and a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, you're speaking my language entirely. I mean, I don't go a day without the universe talking directly to me at least 25 to 50 different times. So I know exactly what you mean.
You have the connection.
Yeah, it's just being open to listening and willing to let it be and to let it talk to you. I mean, it's always there, and the thing is, there's so much fear. I mean, everything is so fear-based today. Everything is just built around being afraid of something, and I really believe that we are here to conquer fear. I mean, it is the number one goal is to look at fear in the face and say, yeah, great, so what? And to keep on keeping on with what you believe in your heart is the right thing to do. And I think that not being afraid of that sort of gift that the universe has to give us, because the universe has it in all of us, and it gives it to all of us. You just have to be willing to open yourself to it and to not be afraid of the love that the universe is, because it is love at the end of the day. And it never wants you to see you in pain. It never wants to see you hurting. And I think a lot of people are so conditioned to that kind of unconditional love being a thing that is even within their ability to comprehend, that they shy away from it and they close themselves off to it.
One simple thing to do is if anybody or everybody just took 5 minutes 3 times a day and just put their attention in their heart and just focused on love, who they love, loving themselves, just feeling the vibration of love, and actually you can imagine radiating love. Yes. And it really is a substance.
Yeah, and you can never get too much of it. It is impossible to love too much. I think there's impossible, to hate too much. There's impossibility to just any kind of negative emotion. But love, it is a cup that will never be full. And I think that that's something that a lot of people just maybe need to take a moment and consider being open to, and that it will always be there, because it is what existence is. It is love, and it is the light, and it is bringing in the white light and expelling all of the negative blackness from your being. And in meditation, I mean, that's one of the things they teach you, is to bring in the white light and to exhale the black smoke. And that's exactly what you're saying, is to take 5 minutes 3 times a day and just do that. People have no idea how much better that they will feel just in grounding and centering themselves out, and becoming one in harmony with the
I
universe.
call all that consciousness calibration, and I like the way you use the word open, because that is the key. Opening your heart, opening your mind, and asking questions. It's that, come to me as a child thing, because if you're humble enough to ask a question, you're admitting you don't know everything, and then you're open to receiving answers.
Exactly. No, you could not have put it any better. So now with the greater consciousness event and the multiple, so the seminars, is it on a collective consciousness based principle that you are executing different practices with the group as are you guys sitting there and as a group focusing on the same thing and focusing on changing things and affirmations and things like that?
Yes, precisely. As a matter of fact, what I did was I created these newspaper headlines. I made a graphic of a newspaper and I made headlines, and those would be the headlines if the solutions that we were envisioning came to pass. And so we're focusing on these headlines. That's
such a brilliant idea. That's such a simple, easy way to do it for people to I think easily follow. That's brilliant. That's well done. And so you're having them focus on these newspaper headlines and reading the words and seeing them on the newspaper. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. And we're doing it in such a way that we get quiet and centered, and we raise the vibration to gratitude, and then we discuss the intention, and then we focus on that the intention has already come to pass, and we're like using our senses, imagining, these headlines, have come to pass, and that the world is different now, and we're in this world, that has these changes that we have consciously created, and know that we are empowered to create, especially when we synergize our consciousness as a group, because we get that exponential bandwidth of energy.
Collective consciousness is something that has not even begun to be understood or tapped yet. I feel like there is a whole other paradigm shift that is still on its way in terms of like the power and the human understanding of what collective consciousness can actually do. It's still on the fringe of science, but I think that science and technology are catching up with these things that have been perceived as superstition, for so many years, because it was impossible to actually measure it in such a way that humans could understand and present it. But I think that you're on such the right path. I want to back up for a moment and talk about appreciation and gratitude. You mentioned a moment ago about getting to the place of being grateful, and I just want to emphasize the importance of every day, what appreciation and gratitude mean, and how appreciation and gratitude affect the world around you, and how it will affect everyone around you to have that sort of mentality and to be operating your life from a place of gratefulness.
It's an empowered place to be, and it's actually the part of what Greg Braden calls the lost secret of prayer, and that is when you're praying, you have to imagine, and it says this in the Bible, that it's already been done. Be grateful that it's already been received and answered, and say thank you. Well, when you hold the vision with gratitude, you're saying it's already done. That gets into the subconscious mind, and it creates the experience.
Right, because what you see and what you envision is ultimately what will come to pass. No matter what, and you only get what you feel you deserve. And
gratitude can help you time travel. Actually, you can.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Actually, as a matter of fact, that is a great way to tease into the next segment. We need to take one more quick break. Michelle, this hour and a half is flying by. I don't think I've ever had a show fly by this fast for me. I can't begin to express how happy I am to be speaking with you about these things. It's even just for me in and of itself rewarding and nurturing in ways that I did not expect. And I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about these things. I think really of all of the TruthFunders shows we have ever done and all of the projects that we have put on truthfunders.com, I personally, this is me speaking, not the voice of TruthFunders, but the voice of Art Webb speaking, saying that this is the single most important thing we've ever discussed. And I'm just having a complete ball having this conversation with you, because unfortunately it's so rare that I actually come by somebody that I can just jump into it with, and the mutual understanding already exists. But when we get back, I want to talk about time traveling and gratitude and how the two are linked, because that is something I didn't know, and I time travel. Come on, what are we doing? 818-919-2355 is the telephone number, 888-919-2355. We're talking to Michelle Marie Angel, and she's launching a project on TruthFunders this weekend called Alchemy of Light, and we will get into the specifics of that, as well as how to time travel through gratitude when we are back here on the live TruthFunders Radio show on the Inception Radio Network.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
All right, as we round into the last 30 minutes of this particular edition of the live TruthFunders Radio show on the Inception Radio Network, we still have just a smattering of things we need to get to. My guest is Michelle Marie Angel. My name is Art Webb, by the way. I'm your host. Mark Schwartz is out this week on his honeymoon. He claims to be listening to the show live as we are doing it. I don't have any proof of that, though, so I guess I won't try and prove it to you. But 888-919-2355 is the telephone number. And Michelle, I want to get probably in the last 5-10 minutes of the show into the specifics of your project on TruthFunders. But before we do that, I've got a few more things I want to hit here with you. And actually, before I do that, I want to give out your website another time here. We'll give it out again before the end of the show, but smile4love.com and also visionarysolutions.org. And what is the difference between those two websites? What are people going to find when they go to each?
The nonprofit organization is about educational programs and those kind of services.
And that's Visionary, is that visionarysolutions.org?
Yes, that's Visionary Solutions. It's a nonprofit in Oregon. It's currently dormant. It's getting revamped, I would say, with these new programs that I'm creating right now. But it has to do with delivering education as a service. Now, the smile4love.com website is about products. The books, poetry art, quote art, the things that I've developed are on my website.
And you can find all that at smile4love.com. Okay, when we went into the break, we were just going to jump into the link that you can present somehow between time travel and gratitude. And please enlighten us all on what you know about this, because I know nothing. I didn't even know this was a concept, so I can't wait to hear.
Oh, this is so fascinating. Well, we can think from our mind or we can think from our heart. And our mind is linear. And so we're kind of subjected to time. You know, that's where we plan things out and do things in a linear way. But if you go to your heart, then you're a light being. You're actually out of the constricts of time and space. And I'm not a scientist, but I think that you could get more elaborate information from books such as The Physics of Angels by Rupert Sheldrake and Matthew Fox. They talk about They compare a photon with an angel and their qualities and capabilities. Well,
whoa, really?
Yes.
I've never heard of this before. That's fascinating, though.
Oh, it is so fascinating. And the thing is, we are all atomic beings. We are the technology. I mean, I love technology, and it can be used for good things, but intelligence is obviously, you know, trumps artificial intelligence, if you think about it.
Absolutely. No, we are. I mean, we are the single. It's impossible to describe the technology that we ourselves are, and what the human brain, the human heart, and the human spirit collectively can do when working all in synchronicity as one.
So if you're visioning and you're coming from your heart and you're holding this vision and you're in a state of gratitude, it puts you in the eternal now moment. Okay, there's only now. And when you're in gratitude with your vision, you're saying, this is. is. And then, so I do a gratitude sandwich. I start with gratitude, and then we evoke emotion, and then we envision our intention, and then we end with gratitude. And I just had amazing results.
Those steps one more. Can you run through those steps one more time for anyone that wasn't really paying attention? Because usually with people listening to the radio, I know this for a fact, you say something once, they don't hear it. You say something twice, they kind of hear it. The third time, they finally get it. So let's go through those steps one more time, a little bit slower. So the sandwich is step one.
Yeah, this is what I do in groups. We get centered and synergize our consciousness first by getting centered together. But an individual can do this by themselves.
Correct.
And so you start by closing your eyes, going within, and feeling gratitude. You can just feel gratitude for anything that you're really grateful for in your life, because it's real, and you need to be genuine and sincere. And so the next thing to do is evoke some kind of emotion. And I'm usually guided with some question depending on the group that I'm with. And then the next thing is that you focus your attention on your conscious intention and you create a vision. And you're just in the vision and you're feeling it with all of your senses as if it already is. You're kind of living from within the experience that you're creating. And when you're done, you go into gratitude again. And the miracles that have been created by this have been quite profound, quite reliable.
Such as?
Such as I did one with a woman at Lake Tahoe several years ago, and she had 3 intentions. Her intention was she wanted a job, a man, and a trip. And so with her, the emotion-evoking experience or question, what happened to be, we were both single parents of sons, and it had to be about how we felt about the missing a father, sort of, that our sons had. And we were both in a lot of tears. And so this is the energy in motion. When you get your heart all worked up and you're in tears, you've got the energy to really create something. And I want to say something else about that too in a minute. But so we did that. We were in tears. And I left after the visioning to go back to the Bay Area where I was living at the time. And I had 2 phone calls on the way back. Someone had called her about a job, and then someone else had called her about a date. Now, I believe that date ended up being her boyfriend and took her on a trip. So that one really worked.
No, and these things do work, and it's. I mean, I could list example after example after example. One thing that I've always. It's funny because I've learned a lot of these things in sort of a backwards way, and that I have practiced many of these things that we've discussed on the show for this episode, just in my natural state of being from a very young child on. I mean, I have been visualizing since as far back as I can remember at the ages of 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And I've been aware of my consciousness and aware of my overall just, I don't want to say my path or my mission or my reason for being here, but aware that I am here for a specific reason, going as far back as that age as well. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I started to actually read and learn and see that there was a whole world of this sort of thing that when trained and when really worked on, it's just limitless in its power. So it's really interesting for me to have had that experience and to have been always doing it. I mean, I just visualize without even thinking about it. It's something that just happens, and my life has, as a result.
You've never lost your divine connection, and some people have. They're not aware of it, and some people have kind of been programmed out of it. So the more we can help people reconnect, and I don't know what I would do without my connection.
Oh, I wouldn't be alive, or maybe I would be, and I probably have been many times before, over and over and over again, where I didn't have it. But that's part of the whole soul's journey as well.
Yeah.
So. What were you said that there was something else you wanted to mention on in a moment a second ago, and I didn't want you to
maybe
lose
a couple of paranormal experiences, because I feel like the reason I'm doing this consciousness transformation is not because I'm creating consciousness transformation, but it already is happening, and people need to know how to process and adjust to the changes that are already happening within themselves, such as spontaneous paranormal experiences. One of them that I had was telepathy.
Right. So yeah. Okay. The telepathy thing. Let's get into that now. Is telepathy something that you had always been able to kind of dial into, or is it something that kind of caught you off guard at one point and you kind of fell into it?
Both. But it caught me off guard the way this happened. Earlier in my early years, I thought, why can't we just use telepathy consciously more often? And I would do things. I would send messages to people. If I couldn't get a hold of them by the phone, I'd say, call me or contact me or something like that. But the spontaneous event happened one day when I woke up and I just simply stated some facts. I said, it's open from 9 to 12 and 3 to 5, and it costs $15. And my boyfriend jumped out of bed and said, what are you doing in my mind? I was just wondering if you got that information yesterday. He never asked the question, and I woke up answering it.
I lived that experience on a day-to-day basis with my wife. We, for all intents and purposes, we are one soul that has just been divided into two, and we were blessed enough to find one another at a very young age in high school, and we on an hourly basis are answering each other's questions without even having to ask them or think them or say them, or reading each other's minds. And it's something that when you are able to really feel it and experience it, I don't feel like it's what I think most people that don't or find themselves open to that sort of thing would perceive what it would feel like to be. It's a much more naturally occurring process that it's not like you're sitting there reading someone's mind and you're actively reading them. It just happens. It just clicks in, and you don't even have a whole lot of control over it when it does.
Well, within a 24-hour period, telepathy was required, and I don't want to go into the story right now because it's too long, but it was absolutely required for my freedom, and I couldn't get to a phone, and it happened for a reason, and it told me it would work, and it worked when it had to work within 24 hours after that. It was critical.
Wow. So, I mean, telepathy, and I agree with you, telepathy is a very real thing. It's just whether or not the person, and the other person or whoever is operating on the higher frequency level of vibration, that they are able to access that.
Correct. Well, I think these things are going to be spontaneously coming in for a lot of people. And also transcommunication, which is communication with souls on the other side that have crossed over.
Well, that's definitely something I want to get into, and thankfully we still have about 15 minutes here because that's a big one. And transcommunication, it's very different from telepathy in that you are talking to the other side and you're not just speaking to somebody that's on this side. And you're saying these things are going to be happening more spontaneously to people. When you say that, do you mean that they're just going to find themselves having these experiences and not knowing where they came from or how to really handle going through them?
Yes, it's good to have a pre-warning or understand what's happening to our consciousness in general. When it happened to me, when I communicated with a soul on the other side, I was giving a reading, which I have given a lot of free readings to develop my intuition, and it was a girl that I had just met the day before, so I didn't know about her or her life. And so the day she came over for a reading, I'm clairaudient, and so I would just write down on a piece of paper whatever came through. And then for my own confidence, I would use angel cards and stuff like that, sometimes tarot cards. Well, I tuned in for my clairaudient portion, and I heard, "Tell her I love her, tell her I love her, tell her I love her."
Wow.
And I told the voice, "Not right now, I'll get to that." But this person on the other side went on to inform me of his name, and the way he did that was he started singing "Tiptoe Through the Tulips," Tiny Tim, and then Tim. And so I got the name Tim, and then I saw a lemon, and then a waxy leaf, and then I got lemon tree. And so when I got done with I wrote all that down, and then I did the cards, and then I picked that up, and I said to her, "Do you know somebody by the name of Tim?" And she goes, "Yes, that was my fiance, and he passed 3 years ago."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, and what about Lemon Tree?" She said, "That's the restaurant we used to go to." So he was providing me information that she would relate to, and I don't censor my readings. I just write down whatever I get.
There go those goosebumps. Mm-hmm. There goes my body again, getting all goosebumpy.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and like you stated, like that was a very spontaneous thing in the way that happened.
Yes.
Have you found yourself working with others in your seminars and your curriculum and all these things that they have also experienced spontaneous things of that nature, be it telepathy or transcommunication or time travel or any of that? I mean, do you see more and more of that happening in your work and you're communicating with the people that you work with?
Well, I will. Yes, I have on a small scale, but I believe that this is just starting to happen, and people that are most sensitive, it's going to happen to first. And so people who are sensitive naturally are going to have these energy influxes, and they're going to need to deal with this intense energy and anxiety and be able to transmute that energy and realize how to process it. We really need to learn to process the energy that comes through our energy field.
Well, I would go so far as to say that is something that I have been experiencing for the better part of a few years now. And in your educated and experienced opinion, how should somebody process that? Because I would not be surprised if many of our listeners, just in being fans of this show and the Inception Radio Network alone, are also experiencing that sort of thing. I mean, do you have any tips or guidelines or advice that you can offer in terms of what to do when someone finds themselves going through this extreme, energy influx and the anxiety that comes with it? Because I can honestly say that I probably once every couple of weeks have a completely sleepless night as a result of something like that.
Mm-hmm. Grounding, centering, and what was the other thing? Grounding, centering, and just tuning in, I guess. So when it first happened to me, I got this...
Breathing. I guess breathing would be a big part of it.
Yes. When it first happened to me, I was like, what is all this energy? And I just went outside barefoot and jumped up and down on the ground to ground it. That was what I first did. I also realized that yoga, stretching, yoga, movement, all of that helps.
Interesting. Well, and my wife is going to use that against me, I'm sure, when she hears this episode. Because I shy away from yoga. I know I need to do it. It's just something that
just call it stretching and just go for a walk. It doesn't have to be yoga.
But grounding and centering and just becoming more at one with the earth and the elements and the creator and the universe around us. I mean, really trying to dial back into that as much as humanly possible is going to be the most helpful practice. We
really need more still, quiet moments to be with ourselves right now because we are going through changes. It's sort of a rebirth of consciousness from the inside out.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that it's really all started with a substantial, on a very foundational and elementary level, spiritual awakening that we saw take place a few years ago, really when the 2012 stuff peaked. I can't even count the amount of people in my life that had never had any sort of spirituality, aspects of their personality. All of a sudden were just finding this connection with the universe and becoming more spiritual. And not only that, but more openly discussing it and sharing things via social media or whatever about the universe and their spirituality and all that. And I think that was the first step in terms of where we're heading with these more concentrated and potent experiences that we will all be going through.
There's a wave of paradigm pioneers, and it sounds like you're one of them. And we're here to experience it first, sort it out, get the language and processes, and then help others, along the way.
I like that, paradigm pioneers. I like the alliteration. I like the two words together. I like that. Paradigm. I'm going to remember that. That's good. Okay. My name is Art Webb. We have it's such a great show tonight. I am smiling ear to ear after having this conversation. This has just been so rewarding for me, and this is why I do this show. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I do this radio show, and the primary one is being able to have these types of conversations and to just get the word about this type of thing out there and to get it into people's ears and to get them thinking about it and to talk about it and to sharing it with their friends. And this is how it all starts. I mean, ultimately, what you're discussing in the the paradigm pioneers, we're being paradigm pioneers right now by bringing attention to this sort of thing. And
absolutely, we're doing our job.
And I couldn't thank you enough for doing that. But we have on the show with us Michelle Marie Angel, and these last kind of 5-10 minutes of the show here, let's talk specifically about the Alchemy of Light project that you'll be launching on TruthFunders. It goes live this weekend at truthfunders.com. What is it exactly that people will be able to go and check out and donate towards, and what sorts of things will they be rewarded with to varying degrees for donating towards your project?
Okay, well, a lot of the things I've outlined for rewards have to do with intrinsic rewards, because that's actually part of the education and going back and feeling good about yourself and getting rewards and gifts within, which are lasting. They don't leave you, when you pass from this, earthly mortal frame. And extrinsic values are more physical and materialistic, and they don't last as long. So I'm providing some lasting rewards, which is a little bit different than the normal reward program.
Probably a little more priceless too, these rewards, if I had to wager.
Very priceless, absolutely. And I also have some free literature, and I have books for some of the donation levels, and also message videos. And really, I'm here to help. I want to help as many people as I can in the shortest amount of time. So the whole project actually includes the vast scope of work that 56 books and literature products, 6 programs, 12 videos, and they're going to be able to be broadcast throughout the world and through various people and programs, just to help people get through these transformational times.
So this is a cumulative effort of everything that you have ever done being put together under one umbrella that can then be accessed under that as one stop kind of shopping for all of the things that you have done. You're essentially putting it all together.
That's correct. And then it's a pick and choose, because you can choose different levels or different areas to delve into. And so my programs have beginner level, intermediate level, and more esoteric level for adepts. And there's a lot of information about consciousness, but really it's giving the experience of consciousness where you can really formulate new patterns of being that create, a much brighter future. No accidents, no victim consciousness. We're creators, and it's time to step up to the plate and be empowered.
I agree. And so when the TruthFunders listeners or TruthFunders users go and actually donate their physical dollars, where will that money be going towards? Is that towards the production costs of putting these things together in a single package?
Correct. We're going to start with an event series, 1 event per month. During that event series, the programs will be developed. More videotapes will be done. I'll be producing low-cost message videos, also videos for communities, because you want to, help create a model community and come together and unite. It does take a lot of uniting in order to become empowered. You can do it individually as well, but it really helps to unite with people of like mind and especially like heart and high vibrations of love.
Collaboration always achieves so much more than any individual person could ever dream of. I mean, and any one person's achievements is usually the result of many people working with them to make that happen.
That's correct. We can lift each other up, and we're all in this together. And so by creating an atmosphere, a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood, like we're in this together, and we're going to overcome every global challenge and help each other individually to reach our highest potential. Bam, we're there.
Michelle, in the last kind of few minutes here, I have 2 questions for you. The first one being, how often do you get out of Oregon? Because I really feel like there's so much more that could be done in places of higher populace. If you were speaking, do you get out into like larger groups to talk to them, or do you kind of stick to Oregon and that area up there to do your work? I mean, I guess with the internet, it's possible to speak to everybody at any given time, but I feel like traveling and speaking to people on the road would be such a beneficial thing for what you have to offer.
Well, that's very intuitive. That's very intuitive, because I have been guided to, quote, get the show on the road. And so getting all of this stuff prepared and speaking to larger audiences in larger cities, I just see that in the future. I don't know how it's going to unfold, but
it's going to. I'll tell you right now, it's going to. I don't know either, but I just know that you are going to be speaking to larger and larger groups because you have a lot to offer, and I think that you have to offer it in such a way that is so accessible and so non-threatening, and just the way that you speak about it in such a matter of fact that it is what it is sort of way, that it doesn't leave any room for question. And I admire that ability in you. And like I said earlier, your ability to really articulate these things in such a way that makes it very easy to understand. So yeah, I see you speaking to much, much bigger crowds down the line and really getting out of Ashland, Oregon. We got 3 minutes left, and I want to talk about, just in these last couple minutes, a statement that it's a phrase that I have kind of adopted as my own in how to describe ultimately the way the universe is and what the universe does and how it works. And that is everything and nothing is nothing. And that is the only way that I can truly, I feel like, articulate the way that the universe, just the way it works in the idiosyncrasies of what it is that is happening. Does that make sense to you? Everything is everything and nothing is nothing. I'm just for my own personal curiosity more than anything.
Well, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but when I hear the word everything, it actually reminds me of my grandma when I was 8 years old. She goes, "What do you think God is?" And I just said, "Everything."
You're right. I think for me, it's that balance of that, in that everything is everything and nothing is nothing. There's just it is balance in that. It is the light.
It sounds like there's discernment too.
Yes, absolutely. There is discernment. Michelle Marie Angel has been our guest, my guest, I guess, on this week's episode of TruthFunders Radio. And I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times. This has been an extremely rewarding show for me to do. And I hope you have enjoyed your time talking about some of this stuff as well. And we cannot wait to have you back on the program as soon as possible.
Fascinating.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I just, once again, I can't thank you enough. I'm definitely going to be hooking you up with my wife some way, somehow, because you need to talk because you're the same person in a lot of ways. It's crazy. So
yes, on my contact page, there is my phone number and email address. So she's welcome to email me directly.
Great. I'll have her listen to this episode so she actually has something to talk about. But then she just actually sat down right next to me. She's smiling right now because she says hi.
Hi.
She says hello. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle Marie Angel. I cannot wait to catch up with Mark about this next week, and we will be having you back on very soon. Again, go to truthfunders.com this weekend to learn more about the Alchemy of Light project when it goes live. And for more on Michelle, please visit smile4love.com, smile4love.com, and visionarysolutions.org is the nonprofit. Thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you too. And I just want to radiate love to everybody out there. Thank you.
I'm radiating so much love right now. I don't even know what to do with myself. I got to go ground and center. All right. Thanks so much. All right. And that is it for this week. We're out of time. I am Art Webb. I hope you enjoyed this program. I know I did. And I encourage you to please share this episode with as many people as you can on podcasts because it's important. For Mark Schwartz, who will be back next week, my name is Art Webb. Truthfunders.com is the website. IRN is the network.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.